getting to the current Vikings, who now have a new head coach, a offensive-minded head coach in Kevin O'Connell, former offensive coordinator of the Rams. So, with that being said, they're going to have a new offense, and they've been installing that in OTAs. I believe they have mini camp next week, and then they'll have a bunch of time off for training camp. But so far, the reviews from the players are in, and they are excited. You can take it for whatever you want, genuine, whatever. But the players, they sound in a lot better mood. They sound excited about this new offense. I did see an interview with Adam Thielen from last year where he said he was excited about Cliff Kubiak's offense. So take that for what you will. So he's just good. He's a good talker. But here's some of what Thielen said about the new offense and Kevin O'Connell being the head coach. He said, quote, when you hear about the news about Kevin O'Connell being named the head coach, you kind of look back at the track record and you look at what, the Rams did and you're excited, right? But then you get in here and you start learning the system, you start getting on the field, and really, when you get on the field and you start running through stuff, you're like, man, this is fun. This is exciting. And he said, when I talk about a breath of fresh air and a kind of rejuvenation, it's because when you get out here, it's like stuff makes sense and it's exciting. And also, Justin Jefferson said, like, something along the lines of this offense is going to be, way less predictable, and they're running an old style offense under the last regime. So, a lot of people are happy that they're running a 2022 offense in Minnesota these days. So, what should the expectations be for this offense next season? Is it top 10 or bust?
I think it has to be. Like, honestly, that's the strength of this team right now. Their defense is still one of the worst in the NFL as far as I'm concerned. You add Zadarius Smith, you get Daniil Hunter back. That should help a little bit, but your secondary is still like bare bones right now. I mean, Patrick Peterson, he was fine last year. He wasn't all pro like he has been, and he'll probably never be again. But a lot of his success came because they were targeting Mackenzie Alexander. They were targeting Bashad Breeland. Now you're putting Cameron Dantzler back in the lineup, who had some solid games, but he's got to put it all together for a consistent season. Andrew Booth Jr., can he stay healthy? And if he does, can he continue to be a first round potential type of guy? Can you know, I mean, there's just a lot of question marks on the defensive side of the ball. So the Vikings have to lean into their offense, and they did. That's why they hired an offensive coach in Kevin O'Connell. That's why, most of their free agent dollars was on defense because 2 years ago, this offense was fourth in the National Football League in yards, which Mike Zimmer wanted to hang a banner for after Gary Kubiak retired. And you have a lot of the same players back. You have Kirk Cousins, who's basically a lock for 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns. Justin Jefferson, he's a lock for at least 1,500 yards, especially in this scheme that made Cooper Cup a superstar. Adam Thielen has 30 touchdowns over the past 3 seasons. That's one of the five best in the NFL. I want to say fourth. I'm just not 100% sure on it. And then Dalvin Cook is second in rushing yards over the past few seasons next to Derrick Henry. You're getting Irv Smith Jr. back. They have an offensive mastermind at head coach that is kneeled at the altar of Sean McVay. Um, this offense has to ball out. And that is their best way to victory. They could talk about defensive schemes. They could talk about Vic Fangio, Eddie Donatel, whoever they want to talk about. The key to winning football games will be the offense. And one thing we're going to see from this team is the foot on the gas because there are times the Vikings were kicking the snot out of teams, and Mike Zimmer said, "All right, run the ball. We're going to play defense." No, no, dude, just step on their throat and then use Dalvin Cook as a late game hammer. That's the key to winning. And that's what the Vikings are going to do under Kevin O'Connell. So I would be excited too. And yeah, I mean, just having Adam Thielen says everything makes sense. Like that's that's not a glowing endorsement to what happened at the end of the Zimmer Kubiak regime.
No, and it's weird because they were running that scheme for I want to say since Kubiak first got there, which was what, like 2019. So they were running it for like 3 seasons. So for Thielen to be like, everything makes sense, and it's like, oh well, okay. But yeah, I think they have to be a top 10 offense unless they like a drastic injury happens, which you know we're Vikings fans, so I'm thinking of all this hype and everything and how, like, everything's gonna be centered around Justin Jefferson, and then I'm just like, he's just like we're just a devastating injury away from, like, the season already being ruined before it starts, which would just be pure Vikings thing to happen, and, I don't wanna wish that upon anybody, but that's just how I think, things might happen. That's just how it is until things change. That's how I'm gonna think. But yeah, I think you got Justin Jefferson, Dalvin Cook. You mentioned Irv Smith, KJ Osborne. Don't sleep on him. I've heard good things about BC Johnson, what he's been able to do so far. Yeah, Kirk Cousins, he's solid. But specifically Kirk Cousins. You mentioned he's good for 4,000 yards, 30 touchdowns, but that hasn't really, you know, produced much as far as success on the field.